I'm Rosario Nieto, and this is my evidence number 2. The topic of corruption is a very important thing to get in mind while watching the world of interactions. As a simple definition, corruption is an act of dishonesty, blackmail, bribery, etc. Not respecting the rules in a more political way. And knowing this is important to prevent and combat corruption because it damages many things where it's related. It's as simple as ruining your image is enough to consider it, but also there are way more critical problems that the corruption can cause. And by the time we can get idea of the magnitude. Some of the consequences can be low productivity and can cause the economy to decline, mistrust between political parties, and consequently bad politicians and public servants. Also, it can cause more violence in society and disinformation. And the consequence of corruption, we can assume that this also contributes to enable violations of human, political, social, and economic rights, because people who are more greedy to think about their own benefits and how to achieve it can directly affect other people to the point that their rights, such as freedom or human dignity, are conditioned. This can also directly affect the state of economy, since it's a common issue of corruption, and it's that we are not enough as a politician. One is always at risk due to money laundering issues, or poor honesty can make you a target of those high-rank officials who wish to keep stealing from the public funds. This graphic is an example of a corruption act, extortion, and how each year things are getting worse. But fortunately, there are associations and different ways to try to stop the corruption. One way to prevent the corruption is precisely democracy, since it's an activity in which everyone has a voice and certain things can be decided with the opinion of the majority that is of agreement. Also, there are rumors that this form of organization may be affected by actions of corruption. The truth is that this is the simplest way to try to prevent the corruption. We can also say that this fight of democracy against corruption strengthens democracy, since it promotes and strengthens the union between public sector to make decisions that are the most favorable in this environment. Having previously commented on the consequence of corruption in different areas, it's normal for one to think that they want to fight it and that they want to demonstrate social responsibility. Fighting corruption is an expression of social responsibility in various magnitudes. As citizens, you promote the idea of democracy and the search of information to know the exact data of the situation in which the country is based on this consideration and the available options. As a public servant, it is done by demonstrating the commitment to do your job honestly and seek the most optimal development for the country. As a company, respecting the rules and action honestly between workers and clients shows your social responsibility. Returning to the idea of wanting to fight corruption, we can take the question of how to prevent it. The truth is that it's somewhat complicated. It depends on oneself as an individual. Education plays an important role in this, but first, and we have to note that to start fighting corruption, it's necessary to know as much as possible about the activities and how are handled by the government. That's why it's important to emphasize the transparency and support this concept. More transparency seeks more honesty in any type of formal action, and give us the power to be accountable. And that information is a human right. Having access to the necessary information is very useful to prevent corruption, and at the same time to increase trust in public institutions. So as the main idea to combat corruption, we have transparency. Of course, other types of measures can be implemented. The safest and most effective is transparency. Having seen how we can fight corruption, we will try to understand corruption. For this, there are several interesting theories that can make it easier for us to understand, and to some extent to learn to predict when may occur or not. First, we mentioned the theory of rational choice, and this is the theory explained that the actions of an individual are influenced by their own interest. We can understand that some of whose interest is to obtain more money or something that benefits only him. And if it's not difficult to commit the act of corruption to get it, you will commit it. Another useful theory is that of the contingent behavior that tells us that the decisions made by individuals depends on the decision of others. We can interpret this as if you continue to commit corruption acts, the others will make them too. As a last example, we can mention the theory of games, especially the prisoner's dilemma. This theory develops the idea that two people may not cooperate even if they have similar objectives. That the way of interpreting it can be somewhat complex, but a summarized way, it talks about individuality and negligence, and the individuals may have to end up a war situation. If we talk about addressing the issue, that is necessary to look at it from different disciplinary perspectives, such as economic, political, social, etc., because each one is handled differently, and at the same time they can be related. So the greatest number of perspectives available must be taken into account in order to better address any idea or implementation to fight corruption. Mentioning that the different perspectives are related, this is because they can affect each other. For example, if you want to address the political issue, it harms affects the economy, which in turn can do the same with a social perspective, and thus it can generate a vicious circle. And that way to break is by taking everything into account. Finally, as a case of studying, yeah. Finally, as a case that case study that exemplifies corruption and the other anti-corruption, I would like to mention the RTI ratings. I think it has a lot of information and it's related. It has a lot of information and it analyzes with various indicators. There are several other pages that can be used for this, and I consider RTI to be one of the most comprehensive and easily accessible. In any case, there are other data that students themselves have generated through surveys that will be very useful for us to further address the impact of corruption. This is all. Thank you very much.